Hiya, hiya. Well, we're having another Sunday afternoon in Florida during the pandemic, and the quarantine has not begun because I'm not in New York. If I go to New York, I have to wait 2 weeks, and then I can go to some place that nobody is going to anyway, and see somebody that doesn't want to see me or can't see me, and touch someone that never wants to be touched again. And all my old friends that are great are gone. So I guess I'll just sit here and molt and wait until something happens that's very exciting. I think one of the things that I do is I amuse myself with new inventions and new innovations. One of them is the latest thing going, which is bamboo toilet paper.
I saw that.
I mean, we have run out of the conventional, so now we go to the bamboo, and all it does is a bamboo will give you no splinters, but a panda will want to kiss your ass. That's the way it goes here. So stay out of the Bronx Zoo. But this is the roll, and it's of course they don't bother dyeing it, but it's one ply, and it is absolutely bamboo. This is it. The thing that they have bamboo toothbrushes, and Dylan Bernstein, who is Sid's son, one of Sid's many children that are actually his from one marriage. He had Dylan Bernstein married a Japanese girl. Is that right, Dylan? He's
right.
In there somewhere.
Yes.
Do you have bamboo toilet paper yet? Because I know it's very popular over there.
Not here.
No.
A lot of bamboo over there, but there's not in our apartment in New York. No.
Now you got. I don't know if you saw this or not, but there's a guy named Shea Stadium here. He was he was known as Jay the Jock. He got famous playing Beatles records without taking any payoffs, because I don't think Beatles had to give payola. But Jay was a Jersey jock, and as I recall, he started a radio station in New Jersey that was a talk station, and they were aggravating everybody with talk about politics, and which we don't do on the show, but not necessarily, except if there's a good joke. But he has taken this wonderful approach of destroying the governors of New Jersey and taking them down to get an audience, because it was Jersey 101, which sounds like homeroom, for a lot of schools. But when you had what's her name, Christy Brinkley, is that her name?
Christy Whitman.
Oh yeah, I don't know, one of them. You had a governor there. Was she a governor? And
she became a governor. She became a governor because of me. I personally take responsibility for her.
And didn't you have a toilet paper tax or something?
Jim Florio was the governor at the time, and his legislature put in on a Friday night before a holiday weekend, I think it was, a new tax, $2.8 billion, including toilet paper. So your bamboo toilet paper, which is probably more expensive than regular toilet paper, probably would have been taxed under his regime.
No, actually, it's the Viva is the Kleenex product.
Yeah.
They give it another name.
Yeah.
And it's very expensive. They want 8 rolls for $10. I know
That's
we're not doing a consumer advocate show, but can you imagine spending that kind of money just for wipes? I mean, how much you went to ShopRite, didn't you?
I have gone there. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, is that where you go? You go to Costco and
BJ's is up the street, for ShopRite's up the street, yeah. Walmart's up the street. We have everything here, so
Well, and that's where you go when you really want to load up on toilet paper and paper goods, right?
Yeah. Sometimes that's where I end up going to the bathroom because it's cleaner. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, they do spray everything nowadays, Jay. I don't know. I know you're not used to cleanliness, but it's something that we do here. But the point here is that we have Sid Bernstein's birthday, and he was my great best friend.
Yeah.
And we lost him a few years ago. But we have some of the results of Sid's great work. His kids, and Dylan is one of my favorites. You can't pick one, otherwise you get in trouble. And he had a couple of girls, and they're beautiful. But Dylan was the one who was the heir apparent. For some reason, Sid appointed him in charge of the legacy. No money. He was just in charge of watching this great legend become very well known for the remainder of everybody's life. And I don't know, why didn't you charge a little more at Shea Stadium, Dylan? It was $5 a ticket or something, isn't that right?
Let's see. It was $4.50, $5, and $5.75.
Oh my!
What were you smoking when you guys did that price range?
I wasn't born, Joey, at that time. Believe me.
Oh.
If I was, even if I was 3 years old, I would have said, Dad, why aren't you charging more?
Yeah, I mean, that was like unbelievable.
I know. You know, in fact, I've got there's the Carnegie Hall poster over here, and the ticket prices started at $4. That was That was a year before.
Wow.
Can you imagine? Right.
They lower the price for a bigger group.
You can't get it. You can't get a concert ticket for less than $100 now.
I think that was a brilliant move on his part, though. I
Oh,
really do.
Why is that?
Yeah, let's hear
For
that.
financial
Yeah, let's
reasons,
hear,
but-
Jay.
No, because the demand, that meant everybody could try to get a ticket. You know.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he was thinking that.
No, but
No,
you know,
I think it was a deal with Brian Epstein, who no, it was, and I think that there was some collusion there on that part of it, and I really
So we're
do.
sitting here with the son of Sid Bernstein, and Jay the jock, who's never left New Jersey, is going to tell us the economics of the Beatles.
All right.
No,
No, you know, Jay, I think that ticket prices across the board were in that price range.
Yeah,
although Sid was always aware of young kids wanting them to be able to afford it, even though I'm sure their parents paid for the tickets anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that that was the price range, even for the Brooklyn Paramount at that time. That's how it
well,
was.
if you left it up to Sid, it would have been included a hot dog. You know, I mean,
That's right.
I'll tell you where I left off with Sid. He went to the reunion of Paul McCartney and John Lennon, who were the two suspects from Liverpool that were being celebrated. This is years ago now. And he was invited. He was the mayor of Liverpool, I think, at one time. Or what do they call him? They gave him a title.
Oh, the cultural ambassador, the first
that's
cultural
right. Yeah.
ambassador. Yeah,
That's right.
You got great
Yeah.
memory, Joey. That's right.
And so he went back there, and when he came back, boy, it was great excitement around this. You know, they'd never been together again since they were dated each other for a week. And then there was Yoko Ono was in the middle of this, and May Peng, and all this is going on. And Sid goes over to see these two, and Sid was the most peaceful man you ever met. He loved John because John sang about peace and meant it. And Sid was that kind of guy. But I digress. So now he goes over to Liverpool for this great gathering. He's honored. The mayor is there, the mayor of Liverpool. And I think there were a bunch of dignitaries, and I don't know who they were. It wasn't the King or Queen of England, rather. But there were a bunch of people who were very important and a lot of gathering and press. And he came back, and I said, well, how did you do? He says, lad, it was wonderful. I says, really? Tell me about it. Well, I found this great hot dog stand on the way to the airport. I said, Sid, you were just with the two biggest legends of the century, and you were telling me about a hot dog. I mean, is this true? Am I right, Dylan?
Joey, I was with him on that trip with Stan Satlin. And he told me, I have a meeting in the hotel room. I said, okay, you know what? I get to the hotel room. I came back early. Who is he meeting with? He's meeting with two of the fish and chip. They had these fish and chip stands instead of hot dog stands. He's meeting with two owners, two of these guys who own fish and chip stands, and they're talking about fish and chips.
Well, he would be really mad. Now Sid he loved sugar, but he wasn't a soda pop guy. You know.
No, but he loved his sweets. He loved, his ice creams, his egg creams, his eclairs, pastries.
Chocolate. That's what it was. It wasn't the hot dog. It was the best chocolate he ever had in his life.
Probably.
Now it comes to me.
Yeah, probably.
He would be pissed off that Coca-Cola has reduced the size of the can.
But again, he didn't drink that stuff too much. He was about all pastries and the finer sweets, really,
Oh yeah. He
Yeah.
would graze over at Jose Bars was one of his favorite stores in New York, but the one that he liked was the Fairway Market.
Oh yeah, I love Fairway. Yeah.
I can tell you great stories about it. You can too. He was known as, there was a Jamaican woman who knew that as he walked down the aisle, he would take the chocolate bar and eat it, and not have to pay for it, because at 90 years old they weren't going to bother him, for one thing. Plus he's world famous and he's Sid Bernstein, so nobody said anything to him. But he would take the chocolate bar and open it up and graze while he was shopping. So as he gets to the checkout, she would say, "Here comes the candy man." He
Is
was
that
the
right?
candy man.
I
Oh
didn't know
yeah.
that.
Oh yeah. They knew his number.
And he would
He
offer
was,
them the chocolate as well when he's paying. He'd say, "Take a piece, take some."
he was incredible. Uh, I don't know if you ever heard I got so many stories with Sid. I mean, I hung out with him every day. He did something with Tony Bennett. Did you ever hear the story about him going to the Fairway? I don't know if you ever heard this one.
Oh, that I'm not so sure about. No.
Okay, this is an obscure story. Now, he always bragged that he put Tony Bennett together with Count Basie and that great Carnegie Hall concert. So one day I called your mother, and I was going to go and pick him up because I had the car. And I said, "Where's Sid?" And she said, "He went to get some juice." And I said, "It's a Jewish holy day today." And she said, "Yeah, well, that's for later when he breaks the fast." And I said, "Oh, okay." So I go over the Fairway, I park the car, I go inside, and there he is eating while he's grazing. And I said, "This is Yom Kippur." I said, "You're not supposed to eat anything today." He says, "Oh, no, I came here for the juice." I said, "But you're eating chocolate." He says, "Well, I had to wash the juice down with the chocolate." So meanwhile, I had run into Tony Bennett across the street walking his dog. And I said, "Tony," I was where I had the car. I want to make sure I didn't get a ticket or get towed. So Tony said, "So what are you doing here?" And I had met his daughter, who was very nice, and I had her on the show a couple of times. She's really a talented young lady. A lot of people don't know about Tony's daughter. They all know that his son managed him and had a recording studio. But I said, Antonio's her name.
What's her name, Joey? May I ask?
Antonia.
Antonia Bennett.
Yeah. So I said, I had your daughter on the show the other day, and I said, as a matter of fact, Sid Bernstein is across the street, and he says, "Oh," he says, "I'd like to see him," and I said, "Well, he's going to come out pretty soon." He says, "Bring him over here. I want to see him." He says, "I haven't seen Sid in a while." So I went over and I got Sid. It took him about a half hour to check out, of course, and he had. By the time we went across the street, Tony still waited. He was there. And they're talking to each other. And Tony then said, "I wouldn't have a career if it weren't for Sid, because he asked me what I wanted for pay." I guess they had made a deal on something, and he made a lot of money. It was Tony's return to the Carnegie Hall, and he made a lot of money. So he says, "I wanted to pay him back." And he said, "I'll do a free concert for you." And Sid says, No. You don't have to do a free concert." He says, "Oh, yeah. He said, "Just get me a band." And that's when he got Count Basie.
That's right.
So he had the Basie and Bennett concert. That's how that came about. And Tony told the story, not your father.
Well, actually, Sid didn't know that Tony was going to do it for free. After the show, when Sid got the receipts from the box office, he went backstage to pay Tony. And Tony said no. And Sid said, "What are you talking about?" And Tony said, "All I asked for was a great band." Yeah.
Well, he was an interesting person to the nth degree. But what kind of a father was he?
What's that, Jay?
Pause.
What kind of father? I'll tell you. It's hard to speak objectively about your parents sometimes, when you have so much love and admiration for them. It's better to let other people really speak, I guess. You know how it is. I mean, if you have a close relationship with your parents, if you're fortunate to have one like that. how could I, it's really tough. It's really tough to put in a nutshell. I mean, Joey, come on, you both knew him.
Okay.
You can imagine. I mean, most of the time, I don't understand why I was so lucky, really, to be born to these two people. You know, they say that we choose our parents, or if that's true, I don't know. I ask myself a lot how I got so lucky. Yeah. Really.
Well, your father was legendary, but he also took a lot of chances, and he was more of an adventuresome guy than he was a money guy. I don't think he was about money.
No,
I know he was
yeah,
not about money.
I know.
And your mother was a little bit more practical.
The mother always has to be, right? They got to make sure everything. Yeah.
She had to pull him in a little bit.
Yeah, it's usually the case in many marriages. The mother, the wife is the rock, and the man is running. You know, but you know, taking chances, Joey. I think also that was his nature. But I think it also speaks to that generation. I think that greatest generation. There was no prerequisite with them. You know, I think of all of his friends and no education, really, you know, to speak of. There was no prerequisite. When they wanted to do something, they just believed, let's do it. There was no fear. They were fearless of failing as well. They got right back up. I think it speaks about that generation, you know, also.
Well, yours was the next step. And as a matter of fact, I might mention that you went to school with Lenny Kravitz, who also was one of your childhood friends. And there wasn't much thought about him except that he was your friend. I mean, you weren't thinking of him as being a top artist or anything like that. You were among giants, but how would you know? Time had to tell you.
Yeah, there's a big difference between then and now, if you think about it. You know, so there seems to be a lot of fear with, you know, the younger generations. But when you think back, especially on that greatest generation, real pioneers, they just did things. You know,
I was one of them. I kept getting fired
because he took chances.
That's how I met Jay. I got fired at NBC the first time. I was fired by NBC several times. I would be fired again for this Peacock crap. You know.
I don't know what you're talking about.
They started a new network of streaming, and it's called Peacock. And I said, somebody already plucked us. We don't need to have. There's there's so many stories.
well, Jay, were you at NBC when Joey was?
Yes, in 1986 and 87, when Joey was doing afternoons on NBC, I was his sidekick co-host kind of thing, and I also ran the controls. So I was the director of the show, kind of, in a way.
And that's how you got started. Pretty
well,
much.
That's one of the places I met Joey years and years ago in '73 in Lakewood, New Jersey. And we've told that story many times on these Zoomcasts, but I can tell you that it changed my life forever. And I talk to Joey every day now. I mean, every day. And we've come in and out of each other's lives a couple of times, and each time it grows, and the fondness for each other is solid, and it's just amazing. And I've met incredible people like your dad through Joey. And we broke bread at a place over in Coney Island, Gargiulo's, right? Is that it?
Oh, wow. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And my wife and I had the loveliest time listening to your father use the word marvelous about every third word. Every third word of his vocabulary was, this is marvelous. This ziti is marvelous. This macaroni is marvelous. It was just...
Well, there was something about him. He took a half hour to cut the antipasta. He was a dainty little eater. That's the funny part. He got big in later years, but he ate so modestly. And he would take forever. You know, we would go to Lamella in Little Italy, and Frankie C., who was at one time the music director for Murray the K. Wow. And for those who are watching and don't know who that is, Murray the K was a disc jockey that replaced Alan Freed, who created the rock and roll genre. And Frankie C. was 19 years old doing the music and taking the payoffs.
Amazing.
and putting all of in those days they paid disc jockeys to do favors, Now it's called lobbying. We do it famously in Washington. It's a lot of bull. But, Frankie C. opened a restaurant on Mulberry Street, and he invited all of those people who were in music business and the radio and record business, and made a watering spot for all of us. And we became very close. And Sid was the honorary president of the place, because when he walked in and sat in front of his poster, and I would sit under my pictures, everybody who walked into the restaurant would glance, and they knew who we were immediately, as if they recognized us from something else. It was just that we were on a wall behind them. But Sid would take, and he would cut this, and Frankie was brash. He was funny, though, Little Italy, a wise guy, the real old school Italian. And he says, "Oh, for Christ's sake, would you stop that?" That was him cutting the salad.
That's right.
He says, "Come on, Sid, I'm going to bring out the next course. We're going to be here for 3 hours."
That's funny.
And so he says, "Well, I would like just a little bit more of a taste of." He says, "Never mind. I'm going to bring everything out, and you taste whatever you want. Take it home to Geraldine. Leave me alone. I don't want to know nothing." That was a dinner that was always dinner. This is not uncommon, was it?
No. I was with him and Pat Cooper eating once before, and Pat turned to me. Sid was cutting his antipasto, and Pat said, he turned to Sid and he said, "Sid, I don't want to eat with anybody, not my wife, no, but I don't want to eat with anybody ever again in my life. I just want to eat with you." He was cutting and cutting and cutting. Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing is, we go to the Second Avenue Deli, which was not on Second Avenue, which was always funny. And we would, he had certain things that he liked to order, and like you know what he liked.
Yeah, right. The stuffed cabbage, right. The chicken, right. Everything. Yeah. Well,
So
the original Second Avenue was on Second Avenue, though.
The original one, yeah.
Yeah, Second Avenue and 10th Street.
Well, when they moved to 3rd Street, to 3rd Avenue.
33rd between 3rd and Lex, and then the other one is on First Avenue. They just kept the name. It's a name.
It's a brand. Yeah.
It's a brand name.
Oh yeah, right. Except if someone is going to find it by name, you're never going to find it.
Yeah, you'll end up at Katz's.
Yeah, I actually heard that somebody talk about this on a TV series the other day.
Really?
And the TV series took place in I think it takes place in the 1990s, early 90s. The series takes place in the early 90s, but how would they have known in the early 90s that the Second Avenue Deli wouldn't be on Second Avenue anymore when it left Second Avenue in the late 90s or early 2000s? So they got it
because they wrote it. No,
well, but still, I know who's going to find it if it's not on Second Avenue, right?
Wow, that's
so
great.
we had all these famous little things, but I'll tell you the thing that he was a Mr. Fresser. Sid would eat any time I would see him, it was accompanied by a stop. And we drove all the way to Staten Island for a cookie. And that was from Manhattan, which is going through 2 bridges, 4,000 cars.
For one cookie.
For a cookie that he liked. I have a taste for this cookie.
It's marvelous.
And he would sell it. Everything. No, he would sell everything. But I want to tell you one. I was dying to get you on here because I want to tell you one story about him. This is my favorite. I could do this all day. You know that with Sid. And I love this. This all of it is true. The one that I really liked, the story I really liked and remember it often and laugh out loud to myself. And when I'm alone, is there was a Frankie Valli concert. Frankie alone, not the Four Seasons, in the Bronx at some sort of a center. And I was invited, of course, and I asked Sid, because, Sid and Frankie and I, were friends. And matter of fact, we had a mutual friend who managed Frankie Valli in the earlier days. And we all knew each other pretty well. But I got invited to this concert, and I said, Sid, let's go see Frankie. He said, I like that. Good. He says, I hope he changes some of the songs. I said, he won't, but he'll move them around. He says, that's good. So I had Sid and another woman, Harriet Wasser, who was Bob Crew, who produced the Four Seasons, secretary, and a manager, kind of, and publisher. She was his girl Friday, and nobody could get by her. She was the guard dog for Bob Crew, and she was now elderly. Sid was 90. She was around that. I don't know how old she was. I think you'd have to turn her upside down and count the rings, but she was very old. And we all were going to this concert. Now, Sid, at this point, was having trouble walking. So he had a walker. You know, he didn't like to use it, but he would get out and he had to help him. And she had a walker. So now I put these things, I fold them up and put them in the car. I drive to the Bronx, and I'm looking for the place where I can best take them to go into the hall. And I see a guy standing outside, and I'm pulling the car around. And he said, as I rolled the window down, he says, what are you looking for? And I said, a ramp. I had to wheel them both separately up this ramp. And when I got out, I got a ticket on the car. So Sid says, well, if you leave the car here long enough, it'll pay for itself. I said, Sid, that's not how the game is played in New York. But everything about him was always easy. He never got mad at anything. He never got angry. It was always a brush off.
That's right. Yeah.
And that was my favorite time, is wheeling them up to this concert. So they're sitting there watching Frankie, and Frankie acknowledged Sid Bernstein as the guy who brought the Beatles here and introduced the Rascals. Nice. Oh yeah. And how everybody loved him. And Harriet Wasser, who got Bobby Darin his songwriters award from ASCAP, because he'd never gotten that when he was alive, and how she arranged for that. So, you know, it was a very lovely celebration. But getting out of there, I had to really struggle, because I had to take one at a time. So Frankie sent someone to help me. I got in the car with them with my ticket. It was a night of errors, but it was fun. It was joyful, but costly.
Yeah.
And that was so typical. It was so. I mean, you know that, Dylan. You've had enough of these experiences.
Oh goodness, yeah. We once went out to Atlantic City. He was at a speaking engagement in Asbury Park while he was in his wheelchair. So this was when he was like 92. Mm. And do you know Anthony Muffalato, Big Anthony?
Yeah.
Okay. So Anthony and I went with him. The people who organized the speaking engagement sent a van for us that had wheelchair access. So we got back to New York around 2:30 in the morning. Anthony and I, in this van, we got so motion sick. You know, it's bumping around. The driver was driving so fast. We get to 72nd, where Sid lived, and Anthony and I we're finished. And Sid turns to us and he says, we're home? We said, yeah. And he goes, what's next? Where are we going?
Serendipity for ice cream.
Serendipity. He was talking Patsy's on 118th. Yeah. Never, you know, when you're young at heart, you're young at heart. It's always that way.
Well, his romance was at an ice cream parlor with your mother. It was a serendipity.
Occasionally, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
You know, she put up with a lot. She never said anything. I love your mother. She was great.
Oh, she would say things when other people weren't around, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, she
had to be tough, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Otherwise, right, I hear what you're saying. But, you know.
How many? There were six kids, right?
6 kids, yes.
2 girls.
That's right.
And Adam, you have 4 brothers,
Right.
And your one brother went to Japan initially.
That's
Is that
right.
Correct?
Yes, to teach English and to study judo.
Yeah,
Etienne,
and then
yeah.
he became, and that's Steve, which is Steve in French. He became also a champ, wasn't he? A champ? He was a.
He wasn't a
I think.
champion. Well, he didn't compete at that level, but he was very good. I mean, he was a second-degree black belt, which he earned in Japan, and to earn anything in Japan on that level is not easy.
Yeah, that's where they invented it. So, and your other brother was in the jewelry business. Adam got in the jewelry business.
Adam was in the jewelry business. The other brother, Bo, is an artist.
Yeah.
Which he translated into marketing and work, along that.
And real estate.
That was Etienne and Adam. They both got in real estate as well.
And your sister, she got involved in real estate, I think, too, if I got
That's
it
right.
later on.
Yeah. And yeah.
And yoga.
And like you said, are you still practicing Bikram?
I
guess not now.
But we're not in the crowd. I've been swimming lately because this whole thing with the heat and the August thing, although the yoga was hot, but when you're outdoors doing that practice, it's a little different. I liked it in a controlled environment.
Oh, I because of you, I took it up myself.
Yeah. Well,
Excellent.
I like the class. Everything's upside down right now. I don't know what Sid would do right now, except send out for food.
You would have it delivered.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I would have to set up a computer in his room with a video camera so he can do these kind of get-togethers.
Oh,
that would be.
He would have loved that.
Yeah. Well, he told great stories because they're all true. And a lot of people don't know this. Maybe that there's a couple things about him. We're joking about a lot of things, but he was a guy who booked Central Park for entertainment, and I think I've got it right. Radio City Music Hall and Carnegie Hall, of course, on occasion. And he also did one season of the Newport Jazz Festival when George Weiner didn't want to do it anymore. Do I have this right?
Right. Well, George Wein, there was a little bit of a riot. I think it was 1960, and they kicked him out of the town. So they asked Sid to take it over for the next season, which he did, but he lost a lot of money with Abe, his eternal backer.
Oh yeah, and Abe loved him also. He had a lot of restaurants, as I recall.
He owned 2 restaurants, but primarily that was for fun. Primarily he was in the jewelry business and real estate, So after that failure in 1961, he decided not to do it again, and he thought that it really should go back to George Wein. So George took it over, and I guess it's been until recently. He's been doing it ever since.
Wow.
Well, I met your father in Buffalo around that time, 1963, or just before that. And he came to me to get a record plate because I was a #1 jock in the country then. And he needed to have introduction of some of his other artists.
Do you remember who?
Well, the Rascals.
It was
the Young
the
Rascals. They were called the Young Rascals after the Beatles. They came after the Beatles. And what's her name?
Back at that time?
Yeah. I forgot her name. Just came to me. And it went. See, I'm having that moment that you have in radio that you don't want to have on the air.
Well, I don't know who he could have been. I don't know who he was working with at that time.
He had. This is the only guy that had Elvis Presley because he did the work with. It was who was the great producer again? Jerry Weintraub. And he had Elvis Presley, Frank Sinatra through Jerry Weintraub, and the Beatles. The only guy in history that had all those. And he turned Streisand down. He didn't like her attitude or something. Remember that?
Her accent.
Is that what it was? Yes, your Brooklyn accent.
He said, your Brooklyn accent, it's too strong.
But we had such a great relationship. He called me the mayor of he thought I was a good soldier. He said, you're a good soldier. You're Mr. New York. You're Mr. New York. I said, you're saying that because I drive you to get food
Joey, if you were a good friend, you'd pick me up right now and we'd go to Zabar.
Oh, that's it. Now you got it. Now you got it. And then, I promise you I won't graze. Oh yeah, right.
Good soldier. Oh, there he goes. He's
Growing up in growing up in that environment, what did you pick up from him so you could do what you do? And why don't you tell us what you do now?
Why?
Because
you want Jay? You know what? It's funny. What did I pick up from Sid Bernstein?
yeah,
Primarily, I love making pizza and bread. I seriously, for a long time, I was thinking about, I managed a friend's pizzeria restaurant, which Joey would come and visit often,
Yep.
and come from the bread that we would bake. And I'm still considering it, but it's very labor intensive. It's labor intensive work. So currently, actually, I've been putting together a television series, a mini series, a 10 episodic, 10-part series, based on the British invasion. It's a dramatic series.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. It's really about that fellow I just mentioned, Abe and Sid. It's about their friendship,
Yeah.
and how these two completely unlikely fellows, unlikely in friendship because Abe was so far different. If you could describe, if you had to describe Abe Margulies, I think he was the closest living thing to maybe Darth Vader that you can find. I mean,
There was one other in the picture. You didn't mention him. I'm surprised. Bill Graham.
Well, Bill, but Sid and Abe were they
were partners. They were money partners.
Yes, that's right. Abe, without question, Abe gave Sid the money. That was from their childhood friendship, the Bronx. So that's what I'm actually working on right now. I'm writing a treatment for a series, for a television series.
I'd love to see that.
Great.
I would love to see the treatment and help you with it.
I'll send it over to you.
That's a wonderful idea. It's a wonderful idea. Well, he's iconic, as they call it today. And I think also, that we were friends with a lot of different people in common, Sid and I mean. And when I had the show in Times Square, and Jay was on it with us, he was the announcer then. Sid was also very intent on making that the great new television. And that new television was digital because we were on the NBC digital channels. So we were paving the ground for what is now the Peacock.
Yeah.
That's why I made that comment.
Yeah.
It's a digital television network that they needed to get to, but they weren't. It was too soon. We were there too soon.
Yeah.
They were too busy trying to decide whether they liked Conan O'Brien or Jay Leno, and I was sitting there saying, "What for?" I was a guy who was looking for some sort of a revolution on television, and corporations don't like that
because it was different. It was different than any other talk show that was on late night. Completely different.
Yeah. Well, Sid was very much behind me. He introduced me to a lot of people to help it happen, to make it happen, including Ken Roberts, who at this point, Dylan.
Yep.
And Dylan, I want to ask you about something. I would like you to talk about something that I would like you to talk about, actually, of all things, and that is the strawberry fields. Tell a little bit about your dad with going to Central Park.
Well, he loved the park. He loved Central Park. He loved seeing all the people together, from all over the world, especially because Strawberry Fields attracts the entire world. And, especially because that area is in the shadows of the Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
So
where John Lennon was killed. So those who don't know.
Right.
Okay.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. Yeah. Right outside on 72nd and Central Park West. So Strawberry Fields, after Yoko put it together, in fact, after she put it together, the city of Liverpool wanted to donate a tree. And she and the city of Liverpool. They invited Sid to be part of it,
Mm-hmm.
and she was amazing. What she did over there is just, I mean, it's amazing what she did. It's so beautiful, and primarily in line with why Sid liked it so much, because it brings the whole world over there, and
Yeah.
in such a good elevated spirit. Every time you go there, and there are 100 people around the mural that says Imagine, and everybody's placing flowers, and
Yeah.
everybody's taking photographs, and
Yeah.
there are people busking, singing, Beatles songs. You can, with as toxic as the environment is now, on all levels, right now, you can walk into Central Park at Strawberry Fields, and you will feel like you are in another universe.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where you're from, what political party, that area brings a level of peace and beyond happiness. It's love, amongst it's really like nothing else. She really did something else over there.
Well,
And your father, go
Joey and
ahead.
I
Go
have been
ahead.
talking about bringing people together for a long time now. And Joey,
Yeah.
you've made that your mantra.
Well, Sid rubbed off on me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I listened to him every day. He would tell me where I was. He was a good manager. I mean, let's put that on the line here. I did not have him as a professional manager, but he sure guided me.
Yeah.
And he said, "No, I wouldn't do that. Don't do this. Don't do that." I mean, he was very good with me. He managed very well.
Mm-hmm.
There was no money in it. That's what the problem was. See, we weren't about money, and not everybody's about money. But my father called me a schmuck.
I call you that every other week too.
Yeah, but you get that from people who are about money. They want to know your power. Your power is money. Now I was going to mention that Sid loved new talent, and every Sunday or on the weekend in the summer he would go to Central Park, and David Ippolito was the guitar man. He would play there, right, Dylan?
That's right.
And he was a talent that Sid got behind. Sid would get behind people and help them become famous or become stars. And he was a very good talent scout. And of course, it speaks for itself with who he was with in the professional area. But when he got older, about 90 something, I don't think he had the same, he wanted to move, but he couldn't do what he wanted to do. So he started to sing. He made an album or a record, right?
That's right. Yeah, with the good help of Deirdre Broderick.
I said, what?
And her husband. And her great, talented husband, David Spinoza.
I love David.
Yeah. Who I think worked with John Lennon. Was a studio musician for John, right? Yeah. But Deirdre and David, David Spinoza, they made that happen. But David Ippolito in the park, just like Strawberry Fields and Yoko, David Ippolito, so modest, David, so modest. Like Strawberry Fields, that little gathering he has over in the park brings everybody. It's not a performance. It's
and it's free.
It's free. He just sings by the water.
Yeah.
In this natural amphitheater, that hill goes up and he's down by the water, and people sit comfortably under these beautiful trees, and married couples go back and forth because Tavern on the Green isn't, far away after they get married, and they have their reception, and they come through the park over there, and David sings to them. And it's another place that just brings people to another level. It's beautiful.
And the park commissioner, Stern, not Howard, but Stern, he decided that he got complaints that David's music was too loud when actually other people came and used electronics. And so he had to forbid in a democratic way for no one to be able to perform. And your father got it going and smoothed it over to where he eased David back into being a free concert for people in the park as you sit there casually. He was just wonderful. I just miss him so much. I got to tell you, I'm happy to talk to you because you're a great guy, and I mean, he always loved you too. He loved all his kids, but he said, Dylan, he's got my heart. He's got my heart.
Well, I know.
And,
Well, I know how that. When Adam came out, my older brother, he was the first.
yeah.
The mother always grabs the firstborn, right? So they were connected. And then the second one was Denise. So a girl, she grabbed her too. So when I came out, Sid, he with both of his hands, he said, "This one is." I think that's how that happened.
And I could say this with I think I could say this with confidence. In the end, you budgeted him. I mean, isn't it funny how it's almost biblical? At first we guide the children, and then in later years they guide us. I've got a daughter that does that with me now. She leads me like she says, "Dad,
Mercedes."
No, Mercedes is the wild child. She's like me, but Christian does this with me, and Sid loved my kids too. I mean,
I know. Oh,
but Christian is the one like you. She watches over me, and I can't get away with shit. and that's you. But you were cool about it. I mean, I don't think you ever got your level of excitement was never in public a lot. I mean, you guys. Listen, let me just say this. They all lived on Park Avenue for one time, too. I mean, this is a very successful family,
Mm-hmm.
and they lived very well. Sid was famous, and he was doing a great job in every way. I mean, he was really, really on top of the game. And it was, I don't know. I don't know when it changed, but I think when he met me, his life changed because he could get on the air and have me do all the dirty work.
You set him up.
well, he did love your daughters. He did. He spoke about them all the time, Joey.
Yeah,
you know that.
So I want to salute him, and the celebration. He would be 100 years old now.
He'd be 102. He was born in 1918.
And his father was a tailor.
That's right.
He was adopted. His mother and who had one leg? Was that his?
That was his mother.
His mom. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he has a humble beginning in the Bronx. I think.
First 10 years were in Harlem, and then they moved to the Bronx. That's right. Yeah. But they lived in the back of the tailor shop.
And I would not want to leave here without you telling us about the bread that you make. That Italian bread. Nobody could get this anywhere but from you.
Oh,
so
you used to come all the time. Everyone would tell me, they'd say, Dylan, Joey was here. He was looking for you.
And not for you. I'm looking for the bread.
Looking for the bread. Excuse me. That's right.
Did he trade a cheesecake for that bread?
No. Empty-handed.
No, Sid had enough of my cheesecake. Believe me.
Oh goodness.
But the bread is this Italian. You need it, right? Need the dough. What was the secret of it?
The secret.
As long as I brought it up.
Well, I was taught by an Italian immigrant, an old man, Mimi, who owned the pizzeria. He came from 5 generations of bread baking in Italy, in southern Italy. And when he came here, he found he couldn't make any money just selling bread. So he started making pizza, and that's where he really made his money. But when I first went to him and I said, Mimi, I asked him, I want to learn from you. He brought me outside and he said, you have to feel the temperature, the humidity. If it's too hot, you make the water cold. He didn't have a measuring instrument. It was all by feel. And his hands were laced in gold. He was an artist. And I learned from the best.
And you too. Yesterday was the 55th anniversary of Shea Stadium.
Yeah, that's right.
So get your $5 out.
Right.
You weren't here yet, huh? You weren't here?
No, the first Shea show was in 65. The second one was 66.
Yeah.
I was born in 67.
Wow.
So you didn't know too much about what was going on?
No.
No, back then, no. But in the 70s, in the early 70s, I mean, you don't have to be more than 3 years old to start to get a feel of, what's going on. And when John Lennon and Paul McCartney, in the early 70s, even after they broke up, you're meeting these people, and people are coming over and talking about the Beatles. You get a sense of the history.
He once said famously, "I'm a hunch player. I'm a hunch player."
That's right. Where did you hear that, Jay?
Oh, I know things. I know people.
That you know what? That marks him, because that's exactly almost like a gambler.
Yes, and history was made when he decided way early to bring them to America and to make the deal with Brian Epstein.
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny how Joey speaks about how they worked together on Joey's television show, and Joey said he was a great manager. All intuition.
Yeah.
All hunch. All intuition.
Yep.
It's which speaks volume. I mean, intuition. How much more do you need?
Well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You're fascinating. You are fascinating too.
Oh, don't start flattering the guests. I mean, you're going to be like, you sound like everybody else on late night TV.
Okay.
No. Sound like it, Jay. I like that, Jay. Thanks.
Yeah, of course you did.
All right. Well, it's time to go, you guys. I got to use my bamboo toilet paper, and I'm wearing my Canterbury Street shirt for the occasion. This is the London look. Now, your father was never a fashion plate, but he always he loved everybody who had that great style, English style. So,
and by the way, before we go, when can we see Sid and Abe? When is that going to come about, real quick?
It takes a while, especially now that nothing is really being done production-wise. But we're working on the pilot, and needless to say, there's terrific interest. So it's just a matter of the pilot, and that's it.
Okay. When things get back to normal, we get going with that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'm looking forward to it.
I'll keep you posted for sure, Jay. Yeah.
Well, I have to go now. I have to mail something, and it has to get there by
Christmas. You better do it now.
Let a smile be your umbrella, but don't get a mouthful of rain.